Hello and welcome to Detroit Performs. I'm your host, DJ Oliver, and I'm at the Art of Custom Framing in Troy, where our first artist, Doug West, shows some of his work. We caught up with Doug as he transitions from professional athlete paintings to a new venture.
There are great sports cities, but when it comes to Detroit, probably the greatest. In 1980, I had a chance meeting with Muhammad Ali at a sports show, and that sort of began my art career. I was the only guy in line with a painting, and when he came to me, he stopped, and he said, "What is this?" And I said, "It's a painting." He said, "Who's the artist?" And I said, "I'm the artist." He said, "You're the greatest." And when he said that, that was my measuring bar. Then I thought my work better be the greatest. I love the human form, so when you see the motion and movement, the expression, the excitement, and the highs and lows of sports, and you want to paint that or draw that, there's nothing like it. Because in that moment that's captured, if you can get that on a canvas, you have literally a masterpiece. It began with baseball, and baseball is almost a quiet sport. Football has that rush of excitement and the noise of the crowd. Tennis, again, is a different sport. Each sport is so different, and golf being very quiet. So as far as a favorite sport goes, it really depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm in a quiet mood, I might paint a golfer or a tennis player. If I'm in an excited mood, then I might do football. In the late 1990s, I had an agent. He calls me Maestro. He said, "Maestro, what's your dream?" I said, "I have several dreams. I'd like to paint for the Baseball Hall of Fame." I was a baseball fan growing up. And so through his connections, before I knew we were in Cooperstown, at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and they selected me as their artist. From there, a lot of things happened. I was in Canada with a group of guys. I became the artist for the Hockey Hall of Fame. From there, different Hall of Fames happened. What I like to do is I go through old magazines, and I'll look at the photographs, covers, pictures. I'll listen to people and take it in. I'm not aware of it, but when I go back, I'll paint them. Somehow the essence comes out, and people say, "You've really captured them," and I've never watched them on film. You have to capture the essence of a person. I think if you can do that and do it with dignity, that your work will shine every time. Capturing the expression of a player is interesting, and capturing the light in their eyes. What happened for me is I wanted to have a deeper understanding of myself. But what came with that was so interesting because it put light in the subjects that I painted. And I noticed too that the expressions, as I was more honest with myself and freer, that the expressions in the work they almost drip with expressions. You can almost feel their sweat in the poses. So that all transferred into my work. So what I like to do is I'll work right side up to lay the image out. Once everything's in place, then what I do is I flip the canvas and I paint everything upside down. They're not faces, they're not shapes, they're what I call lines of motion. Barry Sanders is a great example. Barry Sanders, when he runs actually in two directions. His movement is a forward movement, but there's a backward bend. And if I were to paint that, lean it too much to the left or too much to the right, it doesn't look right. So Barry Sanders is a great example here in Detroit. I've done many Barry Sanders, and he's always the same thing. The trick is upside down, get his motion, and then paint his face. I did a piece on Michael Jordan that was really unique. I wanted to take art to a different level. So I thought, what I'll do is I'll paint the Bulls uniform color on the background and then put the Jordan on top of that, which is really unheard of, red on red. And then I thought, what if I didn't paint the lines and I let the viewer finish the piece by looking at the painting? Their eyes could finish the lines. I really want to make this Miguel Cabrera a special piece. I want to kind of capture his career. So today I'm going to be painting Miguel Cabrera upside down and right side up. You can follow some of my brush strokes and see a little of my technique in doing the piece. Now this little thing, this is called glazing. And what this does, it's a thin coat of paint like a Kool-Aid. And when you put it on there, it transforms the color. And if you do layer after layer of glazing, the piece is beautiful. In the areas that where the light hits, if you add yellow, and a little red, it just makes it jump with glazing. I think with a great piece of art, you let it speak to you. It will move you. Often I'll see the piece before it exists.
He seems to just be able to capture the essence of that athlete in his painting. And he was realistic, but also I could see that emerging expressionist feel. Now he has just a new freedom. He introduced his new body of work, and he actually had me shut my eyes to bring in his new work. And when I opened my eyes, I saw a newly emerging expressionistic painter. So I was pretty amazed at that.
I had to free myself. So I found an old canvas and I began to splash colors on the canvas. And I felt that release and that freedom. And suddenly I began swirling colors and I did a Jimi Hendrix piece. So I became this expressionist painter, bringing realism into expressionism with color. And so I've recently been in contact with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they've agreed to put one of my pieces in the Hall of Fame, a tribute to Prince. There's an interesting quality to my rock and roll pieces. It was never thought out, but it has happened. The pieces have sort of a haunting quality. My sister-in-law says that I've painted them as they are now, that many are deceased. She said it's as if you've placed their soul on the canvas, and there is a dimension in the work. One of the pieces, the Ghost of Imagine, which is a John Lennon piece, began with these swirls of color. And the image falls away, and yet it's there, and yet it's not. And the other thing that I love about these pieces is you have to sort of look into the piece to discover them. It's as if you're seeing a different dimension. But that's what's outstanding, I think, of these pieces. It's a buildup of colors, and colors that almost shouldn't go together. And somehow it works.
Doug is taking it to a more of a passionate level, I guess I would say. He's trying to get his emotions. You're seeing that coming through in these portraits. I said, Doug, paint big. And he pulled up with his car and Obama strapped to the top. And I said, you did it, and it's stunning. And I just love that piece. You're just drawn to that piece, and I'm very excited for him. I had a client walk in and fall in love with Michael. She said, this was my idol growing up. I love Michael. When they're looking at an icon, they're just lighting up.
There are a lot of great artists that came from Detroit. Detroit is such a rich heritage in music and sports. It's like I've fallen into the right field.
You can learn more about Doug West on DetroitPerforms.org.